very interesting interesting topic, which is an investment option. My name is Timothy, a serial real estate investor, and also very passionate about construction, buildings. I'm very interested, and that's my other hobby. I do construction as a side hustle. Auntie knows that I've also brokered a couple of real estate transactions, including her residential home and her investment properties. So I'm very pleased to be here and share with you best practices and some of the little information I can share about real estate. With me, I'm with Pastor Moses. Pastor Moses, do you mind just introducing yourself briefly to the rest of the audience?
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Mr. Masembe. I loved a serial real estate investor. Uh, I want to borrow that. So, I'm Moses. I passed VCC. That's what I do uh, here and there. But on the side, we run soccer properties. A company we founded 3 years ago with my wife. And we've we've done incredible work in Muyenga in the real estate there in the last 3 years. We've also ventured in some other aspects of real estate that I will be able to share in this place. This is one area we're so passionate about. We really carry a pain in this, and so that's where our passion was born to enter real estate. It was really more from those places where we wanted to get somewhere and there were all these blockages. So you'll be able to hear a lot from me in that aspect. I'm excited to speak to you all. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Pastor Moses. So to start with, I'll just give a brief of how we're going to present this. So first of all, being a masterclass, I'll start with a brief of what real estate is all about as an option, taking you through some of the basics, and then we'll share case studies, real experiences, and we'll cut across investing in just bare land, and then looking at investing in rental or real estate properties that are developed, and then we'll look at two case studies. One will be a case study of condominiums and development of group or sort of high rises that are called apartments or condominiums, and that will be a case study from Pastor Moses, soccer properties. He has already talked about that. And then I'll also hand a case study on Airbnb. So I'll just share my screen briefly to take you through some of the quick basics of what we're looking at when we say real estate. Okay, let's give me a second. Okay. So this is okay. So the basics, real estate. Real estate it's a combination of both land, buildings, and fixtures, and even natural resources. If you have a property or land that is bare, that's not developed, it's part of real estate. This all forms real estate. If you have a home that you built for yourself, that is real estate. If you invested in an apartment, you bought a condominium, they're very popular in Nigeria, Chira, North Kampala region, that is real estate, okay? It encompasses both the physical land and also rights that come with it. For example, if you have a lease, you don't hold the right to title, but you have a lease on the property. Pastor Moses owns the land, but you took a lease, for example, for 10 years. That's part of your real estate portfolio, okay? So in essence, it's all immovable properties in the form of land and buildings. Types of real estate. We have residential properties, which are the houses, very popular. Bungalows in Uganda, people own homes, standalone homes. And then our friends in Kenya do a lot of apartments and condominiums in places like Westlands. Mrs. Moses spent a lot of time in Kenya. But if you go of single family homes and villas and big homes. And then when you come to Uganda, places like North Kampala, Nigeria, Chira, Kulambiro, When you look at places like Ntinda, they have a lot of apartments, which also are the residential apartments, but many of them are rental, but owned by either companies or individuals. We also have commercial properties. These are mainly for business. They can be offices. They can also be shopping malls, shopping stores, or retail stores. An example: if you go to a mall like Garden City or Acacia Mall, Arena Mall, those are commercial real estate properties. Okay, they form a portfolio of either an individual, an investment vehicle, or a company that runs that real estate as a commercial property. Your rentals, if you have rentals and you build your four one-bedroom rentals somewhere, maybe in Wakiso or Nansana, these form part of commercial real estate. And then we have industrial real estate, for example, warehouses. Okay, there are also stores. We have places like Chambogo, places like industrial area and Tinda Namamve. They have industrial real estate. They're gazetted by the government to handle industrial real vacant land, the 50 by 100s that you know in Uganda, 12 decimals, 1 acre, 10 acres, and then farmland. For example, if you have a farm upcountry, Mubende, Masaka, Mitiana, this is all real estate. Okay, it could be undeveloped land, but it's still real estate or vacant land. Some own square miles. You own a beach, beachfront property. This land also forms part of real estate. So as a basic, that's what that's some of the brief introduction that I can say about real estate. Um, Reasons to invest in real estate. Real estate is an investment option that can generate great returns if you manage to invest wisely. And later we'll show you some of the tactics that we use in choosing our options while investing. I belong to an investment club called Tregate Investment Club. We primarily deal in real estate, buying and developing, and we a group of 20. And I'll tell you a secret: the power of numbers. You can choose to go alone, but if you want to go further, you could opt to go as a group. And if your friends here on this call and you have like mind and you have interest in real estate, one, going as a group helps you to have capital in the short term that would have taken you long term to grow. For example, remember that real estate in developing markets like East Africa and Africa in general accumulates in value. So it just appreciates, the land appreciates in value. So the earlier you're able to acquire land and invest, the more you would save in terms of capital required to invest in that real estate initiative. So in the long term, in developing markets like Uganda and East Africa and Africa in general, real estate accumulates and appreciates in value. Once in a while, we've had scenarios that have happened in developed markets, like in United States, for example, in 2008, 2009, 2011. There was a crash in the real estate market that was out of problems or mistakes of the wider financial industry, but not necessarily that doesn't devalue the potential of real estate in generating returns and profit. Passive income. If you're a person who has a job like me, you have a full-time job, 9 to 5, and you're looking of ways to invest your money and you earn passive income, it's a good option. Okay, for example, you could build your rentals, and you know that if anything happens and I don't have a job, I have some income coming from my rentals. Or if I want to grow my money, and rather than keeping it in a savings account, I'd rather put this 200 million in rentals or in an apartment that can generate me monthly income. And this is okay. So real estate is such has such a strong potential in generating for you passive income if you're a busy person. Many apartments that you see are not necessarily accommodated by their owners. So people buy where they sell condominiums. You can find a person who has an entire block. You find a person who has two condominiums. Even with the East African community, there's potential for you to even invest in another market. For example, if you're based in South Sudan, you could buy here in Uganda, you could buy in Nairobi. So do the research, find good legal representatives, do your research about the potential and the market and the pricing, and then the ownership rights, which are very important. Are foreigners allowed to own properties? So once you have those decisions, then you can invest in apartments as passive income, especially if in countries that have that are limiting you in terms of other options. For example, they're not friendly to other investments. We have neighbors, DRC. Sorry, I may not mention names, but we have neighbors that are in conflict, or part of those neighbors, or areas that are in conflict. And you're, for example, from that part of the area, you have your cash, and you're thinking, where can I invest my money? Real estate, so that it just not kept in an account. Real estate is one of those areas where you can invest in maybe rentals or condominiums or even land, so that you have your investment, your cash kept in that asset and secured for the future as you think of investing in your home area. Portfolio diversification. At times, you would notice that many rich people, even the blue tech, the blue chip investors in technology, talk about Bill Gates, talk about Warren Buffett. They all invest in real estate as one of the options. Even if they invest in other options, they invest in equities and stocks, things like we looked at last time in the last session. They still have real estate as part of their portfolio, and simply because real estate has the potential to retain your value even in times of inflation, and also it's an option that you may have because you can use it to leverage debt, which is the other reason that we're looking at. If you're considering growing your business and you need extra capital, if you have a real estate portfolio, banks can take it as collateral and they're able to lend you and you grow your other businesses. So you'll find that many real estate, many investors and rich people will have a real estate portfolio because they can use it to leverage and get debt that they can use to invest as capital in their businesses. And then again, protection against inflation. At times, currencies can devalue, but if you have land in many times, if there's events of inflation that can depreciate the value of your cash kept in the bank, inflation is where you have a sudden rise in prices and high interest rates and all that to control the rise in prices again and the borrowing. So such times where you have inflationary tendencies, you might lose the value of cash kept in a bank. But you have your land, you just have to wait until when the economy stabilizes and you're able to liquidate if you want to liquidate, or you can even just keep it because land remains a strong factor of production that you don't have even to sell. You can use it to produce. Okay, and especially in this era of artificial intelligence, computers and artificial intelligence is going to do everything. But one of the things that where I think IT and artificial intelligence is just going to be an enabler, but not necessarily take away jobs and the potential, is agriculture and land, because computers can't work the land. Man was made to work the land, and you just use the technology as an enabler. So buying a land portfolio, whether for farmland or just bare land where you can do livestock, or where you can just do land banking and you keep the value of your cash in land, which appreciates in value at sale other than cash in the bank, can also be very helpful. And that's a reason for you to consider real estate. Single family homes, we've looked at them. This is an example. For people that want to build houses, your house can be a liability, but it can also be considered as an asset. For example, you could do what we call equity release in banks, where if you have a big storied building, a home, and you feel you need to do a business, you can put this home in a bank and you release the equity, the money held in this building. So for people that say that, oh, when you build your home, you've basically wasted the money in a liability. It depends on which side you're looking at that. It might be a liability in terms of the cost that you spend to maintain the home, but you can still convert it into an asset. If you rent out this property, then it becomes an asset which generates you income. A property like this in many areas can go for about $3,000, $1,500. If it was in a place like Loboa, it could do quite a lot of money. If this was in Runda in Kenya, it could be about $3,000 and above $5,000. So many other options, but single family homes that we've looked at are an option. Apartments, we've seen apartments. You could own one, or you could build your own. This is a condominium here in Uganda. And developers can build for sale, which is an opportunity. If you have the capital, or your group, or you're an individual and you have cash in the bank and you're growing your money, you could build apartments either for rent or for buying. So you can either sell some of them or rent out the others. These apartments now are very desired for people who invest in Airbnbs, and younger people rent them or buy them to invest in Airbnb, which has regular cash flows if it's a very good location. So we'll emphasize location, location, location. So it's not wise to put a building like this in a place that doesn't have a dense population or doesn't have the desire for the market or target market that you're looking at. For example, if you're looking at younger people who commute every day and they need access to transport and infrastructure, they need to go to offices. So when you're making that decision to build apartments, think very wisely about the location. Yes, you might love your home area. I'll use the example of where I come from, Mitiana or Mwende, and you love it so much that you want to bring investment. You're an investor and you want to make money. Be wise to first look at the market potential, look at the drivers. We're going to look at those drivers that inform decision making in investing in real estate. Okay, we'll look at them. There's a case study for soccer properties. Pastor Moses will be talking about that later. These are very profitable, and then of course they earn you income. Okay, either as an individual or as a club, and it will give you good profit. Okay, second. Okay, so we've looked at single family homes, commercial or retail real estate. You don't have to go for the big ones like Village Mall, Victoria Mall, Acacia Mall, Garden City. You could start small if you have a property on the road. For example, on the roadside, you have a property on Entebbe Road, Nakauka Road. You have a property on Tula, Kawempe Tula Road, Gaza Road, but it's on the tarmac. You could do strip mall, which are small. You use less investment as long as the location is good. Location, location, location. And I'll be looking at that shortly. I'll share with you some of the things that we look at in making our decisions to invest, especially in real estate, commercial real estate. Location is very critical. Commercial real estate, like shops, need either trading center or places on with access to the public, where public transport passes. For example, you have taxis going by, and the renters would find value in renting in your property because they know that there's traffic either by foot or on cars, and they can attract buyers with taking up rent in that location. Places that have good location attract quality tenants, and also they attract long-term tenants, and the rent is usually higher than if you get a building like this and you take it maybe in a village, deep in the village or somewhere off the road. It could be very nice and you invested all this money, but the return on investment will take longer because the location that you put that particular property, it may not be as fast growing, or it might need some time for it to reach the full commercial potential. Okay, look at commercial viability, look at location, location, location. This type of single family homes are very popular in North Kampala. People from Chiwatule, Nigeria, Kungu, Kulambiro. These are very popular. We have developers. There's a group of Muslim developers in North Kampala. If you're from Uganda, you know very well. The Abus, we have Abubeka, we have Umar Katongole, Umar Kalanda. Surprisingly, many of these are Muslims. Why do you think they're doing this quite heavily? They usually do the same fashions, this same style, but these houses sell out. A property like this can go for about 1.3 billion in a place like Chanja. And they're very popular in Chanja. If you've been in Chanja area, North Kampala, Kulambiro, they build the same style, but they make money off these properties. One, because some people just don't have the time to build. Number two, the speed at which they deliver these properties. If a person who's looking at financing from a bank, this property can be built in about 3-4 months, surprisingly. So these guys have experience. So it's an option that you could opt for if you have your capital, and you build and sell. You build and sell. Okay. We have other opportunities. We've seen bungalows, small bungalows also make some money. Don't only have to go for example, in Entebbe Road, bungalows are on short supply. Places like Chira would have many of these bungalows. Nigeria, Chira, if it's in a well-planned neighborhood, these are popular with younger people, younger families, and then banks finance them. And if you're an investor considering maybe doing development, the beauty with development, you can even rent out the property while it's on sale. Okay. and at least one time you'll get the right buyer and you make a margin off that property. Then we have other commercial properties like bare land that can be used as parking yards, car parking yards, washing bays. If you're on Garuga Road, for the people in Entebbe, login, which is a washing bay, and then there are other value-added services like there's a bar, there's a restaurant, there's a pork joint for people who eat pork like me. I can't feel shy about that, sorry, but it's very interesting that you can just rent this place. You don't have to own it, okay? And then you transform that into a cash an income generating commercial property. You wash cars during the day, people use the parking for the restaurant and the bar in the evening, and then other things. Okay. So these are opportunities that you could explore. Okay. There's also something called house flipping. So house flipping is for investors and I'll show you that in the consequential presentations. House flipping, you buy an old house. Okay, I've done that myself. You buy an old house that you see potential, or that where you see potential, very great location, very good neighborhood, but there's this old money, okay? An old house, very popular in Muyenga area because Muyenga is old money in Kampala. You buy an old house, but it has a very large compound. You flip or you remodel the existing house, and then you subdivide the plot, you sell the house that you've remodeled, and then you build an apartment in the compound. That is very popular. It makes money. Okay, for people that have money, look out for those properties with potential. They could have very good size, but it's old, but it's in a very good neighborhood. Okay, you see the potential. The land has potential. Subdivide the plot, leave the house in its own plot, leave the compound in its own plot. You have two plots. Remodel the existing old house and turn it into brand new. You don't have to break the entire house, okay? For us who believe in sustainability, and then of course cost cutting. If you're buying Y16 bars today, they're costing double what they used to cost when this house was built. So there's a potential that the owner selling might not know the current value, or they may not see the value, the intrinsic value that you see in this place. Okay, so buy that property if you have the potential. Really remodel the existing house and then sell that house and then build in the compound an apartment or another house for sale. You would make more money in that way. Okay. How do you do investments in real estate? You can choose to go as an individual, you go solo, you have your savings, or you take a loan from the bank, or you have a business which has extra cash. Okay, you could invest as an individual. You could also opt to do as a family. Okay, families that work together. Pastor Moses and Pastor Treasure do that. You go into a development as a family. You could even be siblings. Make a company, have clear guidelines. Okay, that's my advice to you if you're going in as a family or if you're going in as a group. For example, you could also go in as an investment club. Make sure that you formally legalize the personality of the vehicle that is going to invest in this business. Okay, it's important. We've seen even couples split and then they start fighting over the property. But if your husband and wife and each has a shareholding within this portfolio company of real estate, even if you separate, you could remain as business partners. It works. It has worked for people like Jeff Bezos, Bill and Melinda Gates, and so many others. Form a company and be sure to streamline these investments. You could also go for real estate investment trusts. Countries like or jurisdictions like Dubai are very popular with real estate investment trusts and fractional investments. So if you go to Dubai and you've just landed at the airport, you'll see these beautiful ladies from Ethiopia, from the Middle East, that will entice you into going for visits to see these condominiums and apartments they are developing on the marina area. For example, the developments, Burj Khalifa, Burj Azizi. So they entice you with these nice show houses. So these houses at times you're not buying it as yours. I've saved so many people from spending money when they don't understand what they are investing into. Fractional investments and investments through real estate investment trusts, at times you're just an equity holder. You don't own that particular property. They'll show you the show house. The moment you make the down payment of $10,000, they send you an agreement that shows that you're just an equity shareholder. So whenever this apartment is rented out, for example, in a year, the manager will remove their management fees, and then they distribute amongst maybe 10 owners or 20 owners of this apartment. So don't be fooled that 10,000 or 20 or 200 or 50,000 will get you an apartment on Burj Khalifa, for example. You'll be a fractional owner of that investment. So when they will entice you with all these returns, but be sure to read the fine print. I've looked at these agreements. They have very small prints. Okay. Some of these agreements are only shared with you as you make the down payment, as long as you attend the field visit. And then they don't refund the $10,000 simply because it's considered as entertainment fee. Okay. Imagine being entertained for $10,000. Okay. So be careful when you're considering these options. There's so many people, and especially in the diaspora, lying each other. Oh, Uganda is not safe. Or things are not good in East Africa. I'd rather put my investments elsewhere. Let me invest in Dubai. You land on two fractional investments. You don't understand them. And then you think you bought an apartment in Dubai, but you're a fractional owner. Okay. You're a fractional owner. Okay. Some of the challenges are fraud, very, 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 very terrible, very bad. That fraud is challenging the integrity of real estate as an option. Okay, land fraud, fake titles all over the place, people fighting over boundaries, because there's a Chivanja holder who's fighting with a Milo holder. The tenure systems, for example, use the case study of Uganda, and for partners in South Sudan or our colleagues in South Sudan, Kenya may not be very familiar with ownership rights, and this is something I encourage everyone who's considering investing in those jurisdictions to do your homework or find a legal person to support you. So in Uganda we have 14 systems. We have leasehold. We've already looked at that. We have Milo, and then we have freehold. Those two, Milo and freehold, are ownership in perpetuity. Once you have your title, you own the land forever. Okay, you can even give a lease, but the land is still yours. The land rights are yours. Okay, and then we also have a chibanja holder who are benefit occupants. These people have either come into that location either from a family association or community or clan. Okay, they don't own the title, but they've lived in that place for more than 12 years. These people are empowered and as bona fide occupants of the land, and they have their rights that protect them. So those different tenure systems are full of fraud. You need to understand them very well before you consider investing in land. If you're investing in land to sell, any tenure works, but do your due diligence very well, because fraud is very popular in Bibanja. If you're buying those bona fide occupancies, very popular to fraud because the agreement is done at the LC. The consent of the landlord at times is not so. So be very careful. I'll advise you go for freehold and Milo if you're doing land for buying and selling and subdividing. Okay, liquidity. Real estate holds liquidity. It holds liquidity quite a lot, that if you're a person who is used to cash flows at times, if you have bare land without rental properties, your money is held, and it's, you'll only realize the value and the gain in equity at selling. And for people who do diversification, times it's a challenge. Okay. Then of course time. Time value of money. Times land you could be lucky to buy today and you sell tomorrow at 20% profit or 50%. But at times you have to hold if you're to realize. For example, for us, we do investments driven on by infrastructure developments like highways that are constructed, roads that are coming up, industrial establishments. So we invest looking at those dynamics. At times you have to wait for those things to happen. For people in Uganda, the Ginger Express, people who bought anticipating the Ginger Express, they've had to wait. They think they haven't even broken ground. Okay. Nakauka area in Wakiso, they've been passing that road in the budget for like over 15 years. Finally, we have mobilization on the ground. But imagine an investor who has been waiting for that tarmac to come. Okay. Of course, infrastructure, this goes with infrastructure. You buy a very good piece of land, but access to the land is terrible. Okay. You have narrow walkways, or you have to invest in grading the roads, power extension, water extension. At the end of the day, it makes the investment very expensive that you may have to wait. I have an investment somewhere in Sentema that I invested in 2019, but I've had to wait because it was so expensive to develop it, that if I sold today, I may not realize its full potential. Okay, I have had to wait because I had to do the road, I had to do the power extension. It becomes very expensive. Okay. Um, We're now going to look at case studies, and I want Pastor Moses at this time to just bring in the case study of soccer condominiums, and then later we'll look at Airbnb that I have, and then I'll take you through some of the best practices that we have, that we do before we consider investment in real estate. Thank you. Pastor Moses, if you can share your screen.
Timothy, I think everyone here, you've really gotten so much from what Mr. Timothy Masembe has shared. That's rich, and really that's the engine behind real estate. So when we chose to venture into real estate with my wife, for us, it was mostly from where most people start at, where you just wake up in the morning and you go get a job, go buy a piece of land and build your home. And later on, we discovered that actually that there, in as much as we can term it as real estate, is not a business, yeah, or it's not money making. It's a liability, yeah. So yes, you're in property. Yes, you have a property, but you don't really, you can't call it an asset, especially if you've built that for yourself. That's a liability because it comes with so many other costs to all these things. And then but that's not what we really wanted. We're still young people, and I would say really for most young people who are here, this is a mindset we're going to have to revise. The mind that I'm going to go out there and go work, find a job, and buy a piece of land and build myself a house. That's the normal way someone thinks about life. But I want to invite you guys to this idea that me and my wife have come up with, which we say build fast, or soka kwezimba. If you go to the next slide, Uganda right now is facing a housing crisis, and if you look at even just apartments in areas like Chanja, Kira, you will see a surplus in the market. But when we come down this side of Mango and such areas, we actually see the total opposite. It's hard, literally hard, to find a comfortable, livable area where or even just an affordable, livable area. I stay in a two-bedroom apartment, but man, I pay an arm and a leg for just to be able to afford the apartment I stay in, and because I have to stay near my job. So these are some of the issues we're having in the country, and because Uganda is having one of the highest growing middle class income or population, we're still going to see these problems continue in the long run. So at Soccer Properties, this is the solution we want to offer to everyone. Again, for me and my wife, it's been our solution, and we hope it's everyone's solution, especially if you find yourself where we found ourselves. And I'll share our story in a while. So for us, with saying, before going on to build your house, just get that money and invest in real estate. And especially if you're a person like me who has a full-time job, real estate is a very great opportunity for you to venture out into passive income. Because these other things, in terms of like, I want to start a shop here, I want to start I've had many people who have said, oh, I'm investing, 5 million in this business here. I'm investing, so and so millions here. And then you talk to them 2 years later, they're like, oh, I closed that shop. It wasn't making money. And the reason maybe why it wasn't making money, it's because they are stealing them. they are not there to supervise the people who they've placed in that place. And for us, we are there to you focus. For example, real estate, you don't have to be there. You just invest, and then someone else does the work. So we'll tell you how our model works. But I'll go to our story. So me and my wife, we've been married right now 6 years. And even shortly before we got married, um, one of the things we hoped we would do was to get into real estate as a business. Rachel, if you could go to my the fifth slide, please. Slide number 5. Anyways, so before we got married, we had this desire for, getting to real estate and investing in a property, or just buying a house, because we sat down, calculated. We have a couple friend of ours who, before we got married, they had been married for quite a long time, and when we calculated how much money they have paid in rent, we were like, wait a minute, these guys should own at least two, or at least one house with the money they have paid in rent over a period of time they had been married. And so for us, that pushed us to say, you know what, we are going to start by getting a house. Otherwise, we are throwing all this money to the landlord. And guys, when we set out to look for a house we could buy, it was impossible, especially for an average income earner. I mean, you don't work for the UN. You're not like Mr. Timothy Masembe. You're paid what you get paid. Really, it's just enough for you to survive. It's just enough for you to get by and pay bills, and maybe just save 20% of that if actually you're really doing well budget wise. So it was impossible to buy any house. And so what that did, and this becomes everyone's story. So what that did for us is you go far away from town, buy a piece of land, and then build a house there. And so that's what we set out to do. We went somewhere in Saint Emma, and we bought this nice piece of land. We were even surprised that we were able to get this piece of land there. There were small units, about 4 pieces of land. So we joined them together. We bought each one of them, joined them, and we set out to build a house on this piece of land. Now, God helped us. We chose to stay in this area before we could start building. And that helped us because it helped us to realize the reality of what it's going to look like to stay in this particular area in the long run. And so we did. And eventually, our fuel tripled. We were spending 3 times of what we were spending before in fuel. Actually, my fuel was more, I was spending more in fuel than in rent. So I was paying more money in fuel than I was paying in rent. And so that frustration alone and that realization was just enough for us to realize that this is not going to work. But on top of that, the amount of time we was spending on the road just to get to work and to get back home. And guys, sometimes we would get home at midnight. And that was enough for us to realize, wait a minute, this is not going to work for me. This is so frustrating. I mean, would get home when you're all tired, you wake up tired, you get back home tired. And we only did this 6 months and we realized, no, this is not going to work for us. And that's when one morning I read Proverbs every day. So I'm guessing this was the 24th of whichever month it was, because I read a proverb for each day. So I read Proverbs 24, verse 27. Look at what it says. It says, develop your business first before building your house. That's in the Bible. That develop your building first, your business first before building your house. I realized I was doing things in reverse, and because that's where life has trained us. Life has trained us that you go to school, get a job, get married, build a house. But that's all in reverse. And so at that very moment, I realized that I was walking down the wrong direction. And what we did with my wife is we decided at that very moment that if if we are going to do this well, we are going to start by investing in real estate, or investing in creating cash flow, and build on that cash flow. And so that's really what inspired our real estate journey. We moved to Muyenga. I'd saved about 5 million Uganda shillings, and we moved to this area in Muyenga, and we bought a small piece of land. Actually, it was a house. Of course, it wasn't for 5 million, so I'll tell you the story. But we had saved, I think, over about a year. We had saved up some money. I was just 5 million. And so at that time, we had decided that this is going to be it. This is going to be it. We're going to go and we're going to sell this land that we've put aside for our house. We're going to sell it and we're going to invest that money in real estate. And so we were looking out for houses that were on sale. And we particularly looked at Muyenga because it was for the bigger idea that we would go into this prime neighborhood, buy a house, and flip that house and rent it out. Because again, for us, it was creating cash flows. And eventually, so we followed that pattern. And the Lord provided. We bought one house, we bought the second house, and the third house. And now we've built this company, Soccer Properties, with a whole team, myself and my wife, and Mama Christine. She's on the team, and with Elijah, who is a lawyer on this team. Um, and the idea. So right now, we've opened up for investments. We have an MOU with someone I can't mention here, but we've built this portfolio right now collectively to 21 units in the last 3 years, and with this massive land, and we our dream is to buy out this chunk in Muyenga, about 3 acres, and clear it and sell that out. So it's part. So right now, why we chose house, and I want to make that clear. Why we chose a house, because with a house you have immediate return on investment, and with land, like Timothy said, you realize after you sell. So after you sell, that's when you realize your profits. Yeah, and we did make some profits off that land that we were supposed to build our house on. We bought it in I think 2021 or 2022. We sold it in 2024, and we made some good profits. We made about close to 40 million in just profits of that piece of land. So if you have patient capital, if you have your money, you say, you know what, I've gotten this money. Like people, I hear some friends who get money. You know, they sell a property as a family, and you're given cash. Um, this is one way to throw money in that property. Just keep the money there. Wake up after 10 years, and you're making 100 times in profit of that property, or even more, or 200. So that's possible if you have patient capital. Now, for me, I needed both. I needed to store money somewhere and have it grow. And this is why I will encourage for people to invest in small houses like that. So you get two things, you get two advantages. So you have immediate return on investment through rent. And then secondly, whenever you choose to sell, that particular property has appreciated in value. But the other advantage, and this is the main key one, if you're going to buy a piece of land, especially, if you're talking anywhere below 50 million, you're speaking very far from Kampala. Now, if you're a young person, you're going to want to live in places that have access to nice schools, to close to your job and things like that. Now, land in such communities, you're speaking 100, or even 100 would be a bit impossible, but at least 200 million plus. And that's the reality of such communities that we live in. And that would put you to a place where you have to either get a long-term loan and things like that, and maybe you don't have access to even such money. But you find that, because I'll tell you from our own story, we've bought houses in Muyenga, small house, small, maybe 2-bedroom house, 3-bedroom house, at 27 million, at 40 million, at 60 million. And when you add up all these houses together, you realize, wait a minute, I actually have 40 decimals. Now, 40 decimals in Muyenga, that's a lot of money, just land itself. And that's the brainer. That's the wake up that for us was for us is you, instead of going far away in let's say, because I have a friend of mine, he was my neighbor. He went far away, so far away, guys. I don't want to say that place because I don't want someone to yeah, like, I don't want you to try and figure out the place, but just know it's too far. I've tried to drive to this area because I used to do some work close to that area, and I would have to drive at least 3 hours to the place. And with traffic, I can literally be stuck for 5 hours in just one of those places. They went that far, got a salary loan, and bought this land. After 3 years, got another salary loan, built a house, and they're now living there. But they're living so far away from all these amenities that you need to really get by. So anyway, so this is the whole idea of as you all dream about real estate, how do you dream? Have all these things in perspective. I've had to learn some of these things along the way, and I'm grateful. But have all these things in perspective so that you're really well aware and well informed on how to get by. Thank you. I hope this has been helpful.
Thank you, Pastor Moses, for sharing for sharing your story. And thank you so much. It's the vision. It's the vision that matters. Okay, and at times you have to start small. Okay, thank you for everyone who's clapping for Pastor Moses. I think this was a very strong. Pastor Moses has a very good business idea, very good company. And for all of you who need advice, you could benchmark and learn from Pastor Moses and pick or borrow a leaf, or even maybe apply to become equity partners, or you become early investors to be able to join the journey of the construction. Muyenga is a very prime area. I'm very familiar with Muyenga myself. And I know that it's one of those sought after areas. Has proximity to Kansanga, Kabalagala. It has proximity to Kansanga, Kabalagala, industrial area, which has a lot of traffic for renters. We have lots of foreigners, especially from Asia, who have factories in industrial areas. So if you're considering investing in a rental property, that's an area which is quite sought after. And we talked about flipping. Okay, we talked about flipping. Uh, and Pastor Moses is buying residential properties one at a time, and he's going to flip that particular community and just build this high rise that will have more families, more return on investment. One thing I wanted to note, and I forgot to mention this in the challenges, real estate is very capital intensive. And it's one of the challenges why young people at times opt for other alternatives. Pastor Moses has pointed to some of that. If you need, it's very capital intensive putting up even a small rental unit. If you're developing, you just try building a caretaker's mess. You have your land, 5 acres somewhere in the village. You want to build a caretaker's mess. You might think that they're robbing your bags of cement because you'll budget one room and it ends up taking about 5 million. Working as a group or learning from people who are already there. Pastor Moses is a great example. Attending forums like this can also help. So at this point, I want to just share a snapshot of another option. Pastor Moses brought out condominiums and apartments. Airbnb is very popular among potential investors, and I'm very lucky that in my group, Tregate Investment Club, we have serious Airbnb investors, and I just want to shake a study of one of them. If you can just bear with me on the line, and I'll be able to share that. Okay, so for Airbnb, for those that don't know Airbnb is a platform where you and this is the story. People, business travelers, tourists used to travel all over the world, and they would book hotels. Okay, they'll book hotels where they're going to stay, and hotels are expensive. Okay, they're quite expensive at times. The values, you don't know if you're getting your money's worth. For example, $200, $500, and these investors came up with the option of allowing homeowners who have extra real estate. Remember, we talked about real estate, all developed and undeveloped. So you have a 4-bedroomed house, but your children leave for university. Okay, then you have this free real estate with you. You have 4 bedrooms that are 3 rooms that are empty, 3 bedrooms that are empty, or the children get married. Okay, Airbnb is an option for you, and I want to share a case study of one of our members. Um, this member of ours is based in he's based in the US, and for people in the diaspora, people who have full-time jobs, um, it's one of the options that you could do. You're in the diaspora, but you're building a house of 2 billion, 1.5, and yet you still have your job wherever you're working in Europe or USA. Who's going to stay there? You can only come here for a holiday, maybe 3 weeks with your family. Why not invest in an Airbnb space, which can earn you income while you are away and you've traveled? Okay. Pastor Moses has talked about building these huge mansions, and at times which might not be functional for you. Function in the sense that if you're working in Europe or USA, you're out. You're spending on the caretakers, you're spending on the gardeners. You might consider opting for renting out some of that extra real estate through platforms like Airbnb. There's a case study here. It's going to cover quite a number of things we've looked at today. One, you're using a single lot which previously was occupied by a single family to have more than 8 houses. Okay, and you do a mix of both 2 bedrooms and 1 bedroom. Okay, so this is a location in Nankulabi. Remember, we talked about flipping. Um, we talked about flipping. So look at the house that was in the place. I told you there are opportunities that exist in old money neighborhoods. Nankulabi, for people who have grown up around Kampala, Nankulabi was the place to be. Its proximity to old Kampala, which is the old part of the capital, which used to be inhabited by Asians and Indians. If you can see that fashion of style, this style of housing is very popular in old Kampala neighborhoods, which used to be inhabited by Indians. So when Amin expelled the Asians, sorry about that history, whoever is on this call, we apologize about that history, but we have and they departed, leaving behind some of these properties, which were either given away by government to nationals, or were passed through a series of transactions, real estate transactions, buying and selling, and ended up with various owners over time. Okay, there was also the Asian Custodian Board where people would apply. to get some of these properties for development, because this is in the middle of town. But look at it, it's no longer fitting the land use purpose. Okay, because Nankulabi is developed. It's very popular with people from Horn of Africa. Uganda is a home to so many refugees, and we take pride in that. If you go in areas around Mengo, which is a hotspot that Pastor Moses has also talked about, there's a potential for real estate in this community because the demand is high. Some of our neighbors here come from countries where owning a single family home in a country neighborhood is not something considered. Maybe it's either not safe or they don't feel they're together with their community. They usually want to live around each other. That's why you see Gaba Road, which is a mini Horn of Africa of Uganda. And then recently we see Rubaga North and Rubaga South in Kampala also being very popular with our friends from the Horn of Africa. I'm talking about Somalia. I'm talking about Eritrea. I'm talking about Ethiopia. These and then of course the northern parts of Kenya or coastal Kenya, they come here because of the very welcoming environment. So this was the property, and it was flipped. Okay, it was flipped to turn it into this. This is the Nankulabi after. Okay, this is the Nankulabi after. So you can imagine what came out of Nankulabi, and it's being used for Airbnb, short stay and long stay. Okay, so minimum short stay three nights. Even if you're going to stay 2 nights, you pay for 3 minimum. And these are all investment. These are all strategies in commercializing your real estate. You put all this money around. How do you generate the best value out of it? Okay, and it also creates some level of control from people that just come in and then spoil everything. Okay. And then they just for 1 night, but the cost of housing them is going to set you back by a couple of thousands of dollars. Okay, so flipping, this house was flipped to turn it into this. Okay, um, how is Airbnb marketed by that friend of mine? He's a member of Tregati Investment Club. So he uses it's a big platform, okay? And Airbnb, bookings.com, Tubayo, and even individual brokers, okay? They can market your short stay or long stay property for tenants. First of all, the money is computed per day. It means that a property which would ordinarily be renting maybe about 1 million Uganda shillings, you could easily make 2.5 out of it, because if you're charging maybe $50 a night or $35. Okay, so because of the cumulative value of multiple transactions per day. Okay, so for longer term renters, paying monthly rent is safe. Okay, assured, but also the risk, especially in very developed or very densely populated communities around the CBD, and I'll show you that in my final presentation about how we make our decisions in choosing where to invest. Okay, these areas would have the traffic. They have visitors visiting from abroad in Canada. They have relatives living in Canada, US. They come in for holidays and all these other things, and then they also for people, we have now students that study from up country. They come to UMI to study over the weekend. They rent Airbnbs. They can't afford hotels. Okay, so we have travelers that use buses. He has just traveled from Arua. The bus has arrived at 1 a.m. Okay, the option for them is to run either in a hotel or an Airbnb, and then we have people that feel safe in a more protected community than going to rent a house for a month or a week in say the suburbs or outside town in an area which they might not feel safe. Even if it could be safe for the locals, they might be targets either because of the color of their skin. Okay, and this can happen, and this is the reality. So Airbnb, bookings.com, Tubayo, and then regular brokers, you can market your short stay, and you get you get tenants for your property. So the difference between these, they have different classes. Bookings.com, it has less classy tenants compared to Airbnb, which does a lot of quality checks and all that. Pastor Moses will also be talking about his experience with Airbnb. I know that he's an investor in Airbnb, and he will supplement with 1 or 2 minutes about these particular investment options for people considering real estate. Okay, who are the popular clients? Know your market very well. I've told you about the area now, Kulabi Mengo. It's popular with Horn of Africa people. These are not buying land because they can only get leases on land. So they rather take on apartments to stay either for a month or three. Some of them are transporters. They transport fuel. They're always on the road, so they only rent when they're in town. Okay, some of them are in transit. Maybe they're working on their visas. They're processing their visas to go abroad, and then we have those that have businesses downtown. Then we have travelers. Okay, like the area where my colleague invested in Old Kampala. It has bus companies all over. There's so many bus parks. Okay, all over the place. Okay, and then running short-term rental. Okay, what some of the do's or some of the best practices that you should have. You should always have cleaners on speed dial. It is very hard for you to come from Entebbe Garuga, Entebbe Bwerenga, or like my pastor, you come from wherever you are to go and run to Kampala or run to Nigeria to clean after a tenant has left. Okay, remember this every time the house is not ready for another tenant, you're losing money because there's another person who could book it, but the house is not yet clean, and you don't want a bad reputation because they give reviews on how they found the experience. Okay, so if the house is dirty, the towels are dirty, maybe they left the sitting room untidy, it won't be nice. So the best practice: get cleaners on speed dial. If you have your apartment, you could have a management company that manages that particular apartment for Airbnb. You could have regular cleaners that don't stay from 5 years starter and you can't afford the company. And then, of course, separate utilities. Okay. Every unit on that building should have its own utility bill so that you know exactly. You put a cap. For example, if you're offering internet, you could have limitations. But right now, broadband is cheaper. It's very cheap. They can have unlimited internet. But back then, it was an option that you provide maybe the apartment with 5 GB of data. And if it runs out, then they have to buy their own. If it's electricity, you can bill and say beyond this, so that they also use the apartments responsibly. That beyond these units, you pay for the extra units. Okay. Um, and then there's advice. White is associated with cleanliness. Clean and white bed sheets will show stains and all those things. You invest in good quality cotton bed sheets that can be used in those apartments, and invest in good photography so that these units show the quality that you have your smartphone or your Camon or whatever, but if you have the potential, use good quality professional photographs to market your rental because the competition is too much. There are millions of houses online. Okay. And then we share some of the pros. Um, so I've talked about one. Those short stays make more money than renting your apartment to a regular tenant. Okay. An apartment which is rented at $500 could make $3,000. Places like Myenga, because of proximity to town, Kololo, because of proximity to town, you have multiple renters every other time. You could even rent out that apartment only weekends, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it makes more money than having a tenant in that apartment. Of course, the management fees and all that, cleaning, maintenance, but still the tear and wear is limited because the apartment is left in better condition if it's used for a short time than a long-term renter who wants to drill photographs and portraits on the wall, and all these other things. They want to change painting, they want to change the carpet, the sofas are not good. So it saves you all that hassle. Okay. Um, and then based on experience, shared that at least 10 days are good enough for the apartment to make its return per month. So if you have 30% occupancy on an Airbnb, you can make the money equivalent to an apartment or beyond, so equivalent to renting out the apartment or even beyond. So 30% is the minimum, but it's very good. Location, location, location. We emphasize that if you have a very good location, it can be booked up all the time. Like this particular building we've seen in Bukesa and Ankulavie, it had bookings. Like the time when we did this presentation, it had bookings and it had about 4 months to go, but they are fully booked until January. You can imagine. And then in January, you get more bookings, maybe for July, the summer season. you'll have bookings if you have good quality space, you have good service, additional amenities. So on these websites, they put they put things like fire alarms, internet, security alarms, electric door. So all those additional amenities that you add, ironing boards, they can bring out the value, and you get repeat renters, because that is the money. The moment you have repeat renters, those repeat renters don't book through the website. They can call you directly, and the commission that would have gone to Airbnb or bookings.com, you add it on your margin and you make a lot of money. They don't book through the website, because these websites make money by earning a margin. So the real business is in having good quality service, you offer good product, to have repeat renters. These call you directly, they send you a message, they don't have to go through the website, and that is where the money is. Okay. Pain points. So at times, because of URA now charging property tax and all that, if you have a visa machine, which many travelers might have, the money is going in the account. Okay, and then of course, many of the websites, to book, you need a visa card, because they need to get that payment and deduct their commission before they pay the final property owner. Okay, so at this time, this building was not yet accepting visa, but that was sorted, and now visa can be used. And then of course, penetration. Many of our customers locally don't know about booking online. They would want to walk there and ask if there's a property available, or go through a broker, or they come or they make a phone call. Okay, and then they say, can we pay cash, which is still okay. And then of course, the cost of cleaning. You need regular cleaning. Okay, at times these properties are left in a very filthy state by travelers, because they know they're using it maybe for a short time. They might not even come back. They leave it in a very filthy state. That's why, for people like us, at times it's advisable to use a company, or a cleaning company. You don't want to get tired of your apartment because of the quality you see it in after a rent has left. Okay. Um, then some months are empty. It's a pain point, especially when you see all these messages about bomb scares. It frustrates tourists coming in. Okay. And then the apartments are empty. At times it's just the season. Okay. We had COVID, when the restrictions in travel, if you're relying on international travelers, then you're challenged by that time, because the visitors were few and tourism was at its minimum. Okay. And then, of course, the strategies like coming up with dynamic pricing, which can help you during that time. For example, you cut down the costs. You can offer late checkout times. You can cut down the cost during low peaks, low seasons, and then during peak season you up the pricing, because the demand is too high. For the business people here and economists, you understand that when the demand is low, you reduce the prices so that you can attract, you can stimulate aggregate demand. Um, Lessons learned. Studios make more money per square meter. Studio apartments are open plan studios, rather than having a two-bedroom and then there's a store, there's a kitchenette, there are multiple bathrooms. Studios can be squeezed. You can have more studios than apartments on a building, because they take limited space. All that space that should have gone through corridors, walking to one bedroom or another, extra bathrooms, dining area, is saved with a studio apartment. Very basic. Okay. We talked about photography. These are some of the lessons. Use professional photographers. Then extra amenities, washing machines, internet. Okay. And then, of course, Airbnb as a platform has better quality tenants, but they are too demanding. Okay. You must be up for your game. Service should be on point. Okay. Have security. Be able you should be, when you invest in this business, you have to be available to chat with tenants when they need help, or create a forum for them to be able to communicate to you on time, or the manager who manages those platforms where they communicate to you, so that you able to respond on time if there's any issue like a power blackout or breakdown. Okay. Then, of course, do market research and understand what the area offers before you invest in Airbnb. Okay. Some places CCTVs can be frustrating to visitors, but in others, they are good for security. Okay. Internet access. Is there fiber broadband in the community which can save you money? Okay. Because if you're doing this other ordinary internet, you're paying, for example, an Airtel 5G box 130 per month, but and you're getting only 10 Mbps or speeds are limited. But if you're doing fiber internet in places like Kungu, Najera, Chanja, and where I stay in Entebbe, we have fiber internet. So it becomes cheaper for you. Then you can scale. You use only 130,000 for like 10 apartments because the Mbps are 60. The speeds are high and they can share. Okay, and then of course you don't have 100% occupancy at some time. They can still use only that instead of having a 5G box per apartment. Okay, then we talked about minimum 3 days so that you get serious tenants, and then you avoid some of those tenants who can cause distribute to your flat, like prostitutes. God forbid. Um, at this time, I know we have about 10 minutes to go, but I wanted Pastor Moses, you'll use about 3 minutes to just share your experience with Airbnb. And if there's any other person on the call who wants to share, I would appreciate at this time that that you can share.
May
Thank you.
I, because we can actually deal with Airbnb next week.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I also have some things to share on deal analysis, because you can start in real estate not necessarily by buying a property or renting a property, but you can help people to see good deals and sell them those deals, you know.
Mm.
It is something that we can talk about next week, and I can share a deal analysis, for example, that you can make and look for those properties. Also, Pastor Misu from Ethiopia, has another approach where he finds really old properties or landlords that are fed up with dealing with tenants, and he helps them to improve their properties at their own cost and then managing. So there are different strategies, but I would like us to open for questions so that people feel free that if we don't discuss everything today, we can continue next week and focus on those topics that they want some deeper knowledge about. Is that okay?
Yes, that's totally fine. I would love to hear from the audience. If they have questions or experiences, you could just point a word or two. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. And for really we applaud you. Both Timothy and Pastor Moses. Please give them a big hand clap through the emojis. They've done excellently. Thank you so much. And we have Dr. Charles Sokile, who is from Tanzania, and I know that he is a real estate investor. Maybe you can also share with us from Tanzania.
Hi, friends. Hi, Christine.
Hi, Dr. Sokile. Wonderful to have you here on board. And thank you for joining us. Dr. Sokile is the chair of INOZA board and also our mentor. So over to you, Dr. Sokile.
Thank you, Christine. Greetings from Delhi. So I'm sitting from Delhi, and incidentally, I'm staying at one of the high-end apartments, very cozy, at about $80 or $100 per day, which is really a very good bargain. So I've been following up very keenly and doing my notes as well. Yeah, honestly, I don't have much experience on Airbnb or bookings except staying in them. I don't own one. But in terms of real estate, we own an event hall and compound, which also falls into that category. And recently, we've been praying and trusting God to advise us on to help us see how best to make money out of it. So I must admit that I am converted, because the thing gives us less than maybe in a good year, $10,000 a year, because events happens very rarely, in very few occasions. When you get a wedding on Saturday and they won't pay anything more than $500, $1,000. I didn't know that Moses and Co are really sitting on that massive wealth. So I'll check your inbox. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sokile. Yes, any questions? We have a question from Michael. How are taxation rates on these rentals? I know many people do tax evasions and avoidance due to high taxes. Thanks. That's Moses. And then that is Michael. And then Moses Kiungai, could you please ask your question?
Oh yeah, thank you. My question is about the rental properties. I know he spoke. You spoke about these challenges, which are very real. But there is another challenge. I don't have an experience of owning one, but I have an experience of because my work involves traveling. Like Dr. Sokile says, he goes there, he rents a property, and I usually try to look like maybe how many clients somebody has gotten over a specific period of time. Let's say like someone has 8 years experience in hosting people in Airbnb. And most of the times I'm really disappointed by the amount of clients people get, So sometimes also we need to look at that because it's very possible you can put a lot of investment because we hear like it's a lucrative business. But when you go and talk to people, it's not many people who are making a lot of money out of it. It's littered with a lot of this super, where like there are a few superstars who are getting, most of the times they are filled out, but the other people, they are very good apartments, but it's like they are not getting enough of clients. So sometimes also people like using just to know how to market your apartment, maybe through Google, using like this SEO. It's much easier to find someone maybe Googling there and then they're led to you by Google. So I think like it's depending on a platform like Airbnb, sometimes it can be very like it's not as good as people think. That's my comment.
Thank you very much, Moses. Any more questions? We can take one more before we get them to answer. I don't see any questions. Okay, yes, please go ahead, Timothy and Pastor Moses.
Yeah, thank you so much. The question about taxation rates for rentals, if you're investing in rentals, this depends on location. But there are municipal rates that are set by local governments, and these are set at local government level, and they might not match the national standard by Uganda Revenue Authority on rental income tax. But the standard by URA is usually 12%. 12% of annual rental income in excess of 2.8 million shillings. So if you have rental income in excess of 2.8 million, they charge you 12% per annum. And it's important to keep your tax. You hire a tax accountant if you're not familiar with this, to come in every once in a while to have your rental income tax assessed. On the issue of Moses Tungai raised a very important issue about Airbnb. If you've seen the last presentation, the last presentation, location is everything, and then diversification. You don't only rely on Airbnb, but you rely on a couple of other channels to market your short-term rental. Google ads are very good, like he has mentioned, advertising on Google. You do Facebook ads, you do bookings.com, you do all those trusted platforms to buy and to market your apartment. And then of course pricing at times is a challenge when they're selling you these condominiums and promising you that you can do Airbnb in this location. Do you look at the pricing? Is the pricing realistic? Have you taken it through an expert to assess that whether this is good for this location? Because you could have bought expensively on the promise that it will do Airbnb, but in that particular location, that pricing is just not going to work. Maybe that location is for $30, not $80, like Dr. Sokile said. So, and then So do your research very well before you invest. Otherwise, you'll get a shock of your life, and you're frustrated that the business is not making sense. But it starts with buying, because you either make or earn your money at the point of buying. If you buy at the right price, then your pricing will be good, and then you make the money. If you buy the wrong price, you're going to charge exorbitant prices that might not be competitive. We've also looked at the quality of your unit. These days they pimp. I'll use the word pimping for young people. They basically they notch up the quality of these apartments. They want very large TV screens. They want very good interior lighting. It's not enough to just buy the basic that has been provided by the developer, and you say put it on Airbnb. You need to up the quality of this, because the people that come here in the rentals, they're used to hotels. So what experience are you giving them to encourage them to leave the hotel? If you just do basic, remember you're competing with hotels. You need to put in good quality furnishing so that you attract some people that make money. They invest really. If you do your research, they invest in interior decoration of this, because you need to give this person a hotel experience. Okay, and then it also comes to property managers. At times, we give you give your rights and credentials to a real estate manager to manage your real estate property. They'll tell you the business is not good, but at the end of the day, you could be losing maybe 30%. Okay, they're telling you because they're the ones managing the website. You haven't taken time to learn and invest in knowledge on how you can manage those particular platforms yourself. You're busy after all, and you hire a manager. But you know that at times our companies are briefcase companies. Some people are not trustworthy. Okay, so you find that your apartment is in a good location, it's making money, but the manager is saying bookings were at 20%, but he's taking away the 30% because he's the one controlling the access control. So you can invest in technology. We have partner companies here in Uganda like HIK Vision, which can give you access control systems. These access control systems, every time you're the one who controls access, and these passwords expire, the pins expire. Okay, an access control lock costs about 650,000 Uganda shillings, fully installed, including installation. But you control access on a computer, even on your phone. It has even a camera. It can see who's entering. So you can give access codes that expire after a certain period. So if a person books for 3 days, you disclose to them that these your 3 days with your access, it will expire at this point in time, so that they are aware any excess is charged as an extra day. Okay, and then with access control, you get reports and you're able to track the performance of your investment. Yeah, I'll stop at that on that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Pastor Moses. Any concluding remarks?
Thank you, Timothy. I'm a beneficiary from the information you've shared, especially with IHK. So just to add on the taxes, so it's 12%, but of rental income, gross rental income in excess of 2.8 million. So if you're below 2.8, then you're not liable to that particular tax. So you can always look out for that, because but you can still be able to make your returns so that you let them know that this was it, and as soon as it's below that, but also they only tax anything above that 2.8. And anything below that is free of tax. So for small houses like the ones I'm talking about, or the ones that we are engaged in, for now we are actually still, if we deal with them as individual properties, because that's how they're looking at them, as individual properties. Each of those properties is below that margin. And then I think someone asked, what is, Sanyu, you asked, what is the minimal? I think with real estate, really, like what Mama Christine has shared, like recently I went into Airbnb, and last week I opened up, was it last week? I opened up, I listed a property, and by the end of the week, I had a booking. I didn't spend any money to list this property. I just had a relationship with the owner of the property. We communicated. They gave me the property. I listed the property. I didn't spend a single coin. Today, I have my second booking And who knows, by the end of the month, I'm going to have my fourth bookings, and I've not spent any single money on this. So that's the idea with real estate. You have to study, you have to know what exactly do I want, where I'm at, where do I want to go, and you will make a lot more. There's a lot more we need to talk. This thing is so big, and Mama Christina, I think we need to break it up and deal with just one segment at a time and go broadly into it. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So next week, we will look at where you can start, especially in rental properties. You can do rent to rent, where, especially for people who have houses in very good locations, but they're in very bad conditions, they have very bad tenants. You can actually rehabilitate that and rent it for maybe $500, and then rent it out to, instead of one person, to two people who want to share an apartment, and they can give you $500 each. So so you pay the rent to the landlord while you're also getting out of it. So there are different strategies, and we'll look at those next week. In the meantime, before we close, I would like you to write in the chat and tell us, what else do you want to learn beyond real estate, beyond investment? Are there any specific topics, either for career or for business, that you're interested in, so that we bring to you what really is close to your mind? But thank you so much, Pastor Moses. Thank you very much, Timothy. And with that, I want to ask Dr. Sokile to pray for us as we close. Yes, over to you, Dr. Sokile.
Sure. Thanks, Christine. Let me also add my voice really to the facilitators. That was very, very useful, very practical, down to earth, very useful. So shall we pray, and shall we also pray for our facilitators that God may continue using them, and for all of us that we would really make use of this massive information that we got today. Father, we thank you so very much for the wisdom and understanding. And Lord, we thank you for giving us this opportunity to be part of this wonderful and very useful information. We pray, Lord, that you'll give us grace and burden and understanding to process it and to make it into action. That, Lord, in our many endeavors and desires, this your children may make decisions and may make further steps to make use of this information. I pray that, Lord, you continue opening our eyes and giving us grace to be part and parcel of the economy of the end times, that we will serve you, Lord, with all that you give us in the name of Jesus. Thank you for our facilitators, how, Lord, you've given them wisdom and grace, and how they've been so kind to open their minds and their experiences and to share all this with us, Lord. Father, we thank you for INOZA, for the platform for organizing this. And we thank you, Lord, for all that you have in mind for every one of us. We pray, Lord, that every information, every secret, every revelation that you bring forth may come to pass, and that, Lord, you'll give us necessary understanding and necessary facilitation, that every one of us will make use of this bountiful information, and that, Lord, we will emerge with wealth for the glory of your name. We thank you tonight. And Lord, even as we retire now into different responsibilities, and help us as we rest, as we continue with the rest of the programs. Many of us who are in different time zones, keep us safe and secure. And Lord, we also pray for the interactions next week, that you will equip our facilitators, you'll anoint them, Lord, and you'll give them wisdom to share. And you'll also bring us forth to learn and to understand for the glory of your name. We thank you, Father, and we bless your name. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen and amen. Please open your microphones. And Timothy, I hope that next week you can also share with us how to establish an investment club, what it takes, and what is a success. Because I know you are part of a very successful investment club, a real estate investment
Wow.
as a
Pleasure.
club.
Pleasure.
That would be very helpful because not all of us can start, you know, alone. You know, it takes
Yeah.
sometimes we can pull resources together and just start even with one little apartment or you know, becoming an agent for that apartment, you know, like Pastor Moses has done. So yeah, we look forward to that conversation. We will meet before and prepare. And
Okay.
also include the deal analysis that, you know, that can also be work that you can do before you buy your own. You can help people buy by giving them very good analysis for a deal that they can then take and pay you for that service. So that is also possible. It works in the UK. I don't know if it would work here in UK as well, but I think Pastor Moses has done that before. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. Please unmute your video and microphone so that we can see you and say goodbye to all of you. Hi, Saya. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah.
Goodbye.
Hi, everyone.
Bye, man.
Hi, Dr. Sokile.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
How is Delhi?
Yeah.
Oh, the monsoon has started very hot.
Yeah.
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 Hi, everyone.
All
Thank
the
you.
best.